Today on Inspired Money.
You know, we have so many projects that can meet your needs, and I'll be like, all right, Andy, here are the projects that can speak to you. Which one of these would you like to get involved in? Would you like to donate? Would you like to adopt it? Would you like to go and visit first and see what they're doing? I really like to make it transparent and get people engaged, so it's not just you writing a check, which is nice, but it's much more exciting and rewarding for me when I can see that if I can give my joy and passion and share that with somebody else and be able to help give you a piece of that.
This is episode 61 with founder and CEO of Go Campaign, Scott Fifer. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, welcome to Inspired Money. This show is different from other personal finance podcasts because we don't want to just learn how to live with money. We want to put money and inspiration together to prove that money is not the root of all evil. Let's get inspired to live richer lives, make a greater impact, and together, make the world a better place. Thank you so much for joining me on this mission. People often ask me how I find guests for Inspired Money. And I have to tell you, sometimes I have a connection, sometimes it's a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and other times I just email and ask. I have nothing to lose. One of the best ways, though, of finding new guests is getting a referral from a past guest. I love chasing the podcast down the rabbit hole and coming out with another great guest. Did you catch this from Tony Horton in episode 57?
I was telling my friend Scott Fifer, who's has a nonprofit called Go Campaign. He saved about 135,000 orphans from around the world.
Did he say 135,000 orphans? Yeah, I was not going to let that slide. After the interview was done, I figured, why not follow up and ask? I mean, you've got to do something that scares you, right? That's what I tell you every week. So here's a behind-the-scenes peek into how it went. Hey, you think Scott Fifer would be a good person to talk to about his nonprofit?
Oh, my God. He would do it. He loves it. He is brilliant and funny and thoughtful and a great guest.
So thanks to Tony Horton, here we are. Today, we've got a great interview with Scott Fifer. He's one of Tony Horton's closest friends. You may recognize him as the one-man band man in P90X. It turns out that he's way more than just one of Tony's workout buddies. In this episode, you'll learn why visiting a developing country can open your eyes to new perspectives. We'll explore professional success compared with doing rewarding and fulfilling charitable work, and how Scott finds inspiring visionaries who can create a tsunami of change. Now let's get inspired with Scott Fifer. Scott Fifer, welcome to Inspired Money. So great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
It probably has to be the tooth fairy leaving me money under my pillow for when my tooth would fall out. I'd get like a silver dollar, I think, if it was a big tooth.
That's really good.
That's probably my earliest memory. At the same time, maybe also we used to go to church, not every Sunday, but many Sundays. And they'd pass around the collection plates. And so my parents would always hand me the $1 or $2 or whatever to put it in the plate. So that was very exciting to be able to, they would give me money and then I would be able to give it away and put it in the basket. So those two things are probably my first introduction to money.
I love that. I try doing that with my 3 kids too. We give them the couple of dollars to actually put into the collection plate. So at least an introduction.
I think it must work. I remember it was very exciting. I used to love that part of the, when you're a little kid, church is not the most interesting thing and you're distracted most of the time. But that part was very exciting. And parents would give you the dollar and you'd get to put it in the basket. And I do think that sort of just in a very natural way, just sort of lays the foundation for thinking about the power of money and how you don't have to keep it all for yourself, and how giving it away can help other people. So it probably, without having to have her to say any of those words, it just it introduced me to that concept. Probably never really thought of that before, but that's probably true.
Scott, the Inspired Money listener may recognize you from P90X workout videos with your good friend Tony Horton. I've even seen a little contempt for you out on the internet for Fifer scissors. But
there are a lot of people who don't like me at all. It's really not very disturbing. They haven't even met me, and they say terrible things about me. But that's my punishment for teaching Tony this abdominal move called Fifer scissors. That is very hard. Even for me, it's very hard and painful. And there are a lot of people who don't like me.
That's funny. Before we get to what you're doing today, you've had a couple of former professional lives. Back when you were in college, what is it that you wanted to do?
In college, that's a really good question. I remember when I was very little, I wanted to be an elevator operator because it was fun to press the buttons in my grandmother's elevator apartment building. And then I wanted to be a judge but that was like elementary school years and maybe early high school. And that's probably just because I like telling people what to do, and I like deciding what's fair and what's not fair, and that whole concept just sort of appealed to me as a kid. Or maybe I was just bossy, who knows? But I think I liked the idea of justice and what judges stood for. But then that fell away, and I think in college I wasn't really sure. I pursued a political science degree, and so while I was in college, I worked on Washington, D.C. and Capitol Hill. So I worked as a Senate aide for the 4 years that I was in college. I took like night classes, or would sneak out in the mornings for a class and go back to work. But I had a full-time job for 3 out of the 4 years that I was in college working on in the U.S. Senate.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was a really amazing. I didn't realize it at the time. I was just sort of doing it because it was a job. And at first it was an internship, and then they hired me and it turned into a job. I made lifelong connections there, people that I'm still keep in touch with, people who are in Washington, there's even a Supreme Court justice that was in the office next to me. Like, people have gone on to do amazing things from that era and are still very active in politics. But so that was a great training ground for me, and I learned a lot. So I don't think I realized at the time how lucky I was to have that experience and to be involved in Washington politics at such a young age. So that was sort of my first career, I suppose.
And then you went on to law school and became a lawyer?
That's true. Then I went on to law school, and only because I have to say I just really felt that for me, I needed a second degree. I liked studying, and I don't know why. It wasn't really impressed upon me by anyone, but I felt like I needed just a college degree wasn't going to be enough for me. Somehow I chose law school, and I don't even know why, to be honest. I think it was like something I could do, and it was politics, political science. A lot of people would go into law school, and I'd studied law issues in college as a political science major, and a lot of the people on Capitol Hill were lawyers. Maybe that had something to do with it. I don't really know, but I did. So I went to law school. I went to Boston College, and I made lifelong friends there, and it's a great place to go to law school. But I didn't like the experience of law school. It was really hard. And so I always tell people, don't go unless you're really serious about, unless you are so passionate about being a lawyer. There's so many lawyers in the world. Are you sure you want to go to law school? Because it's 3 tough years. Though BC was great, and I'm glad I did it there. So yes, then when I graduated from that, then you have college law school loans, and you have to go work somewhere. So I was lucky enough to get a really great job in Manhattan at a Wall Street law firm. And so I worked there for 5 or 6 years until I was able to pay off all my loans. And I didn't really like being a lawyer, but I made the best of it. It was, I was making good money for that time, and I was able to pay off my credit card debt that I'd acquired. And so it suited my purpose at the time, but I knew I had the sense it wasn't going to be a lifelong career, so I didn't know what was next.
So paying off your debt, paying off your student loans, was that freeing for you so that you could take a look and sort of reevaluate what you wanted to do?
That wasn't the point. I just sort of knew that I had to pay them off, and I didn't. I mean, it was just, they're annoying, student loans, and they come and you just want to be done with them. I like to just, so I remember, that was great to pay them off every month. And I think my parents helped me with one of the smaller ones. They didn't have a lot of money, but they paid off like one of the $3,000 loans or something. And then I had like 10 or 15,000. I don't remember what I had. And then, but it felt good to pay them off. And eventually, so that happened sometime while I was a lawyer. And then I worked for another couple of years. I think I was a lawyer for 5 or 6 years in New York. But then what really felt freeing was when I stopped being a lawyer and quit. I paid off all my credit cards and I sold my apartment in New York, which was a co-op, and I paid that off. And with the earnings on that, I paid off whatever student loans I had or any debt. So I was completely debt free. I didn't have much money to my name, but I had no debt at all. And after having lived for the past 8 years or 10 years with either undergraduate loans or law school loans or credit card debt, that felt great. And it must have felt really good because I've never gotten in debt again since that day. I pay off my credit card bill every month and I don't spend more than I know that I can pay off every month. So I have a zero balance and I don't have any debt anymore. Yes, I'd have to say that must have been a very nice experience because it's kept me going to this day where I still don't have any debt.
That's great advice for our listener. When you quit your job, did you know what you wanted to do next?
I didn't. I thought I should do something with the law career, but I knew I didn't want to be a corporate or Wall Street lawyer anymore. So I for about 6 months, I just sort of did some interviewing, informational interviewing, just asking people about what do they do and what other kinds of jobs are there. And I thought, well, maybe I could be a legal editor because I like writing, or could I be a legal recruiter where you go out and recruit lawyers for law firms because I like to socialize, and the firm used to use me to like take new lawyers out to lunch or prospective lawyers out to lunch. So I kind of enjoyed that part of it. And so I was just kind of think, what could I use a law degree for that isn't actually being a lawyer? And then I just decided to scrap that idea. And my passion on the side was writing. I really enjoyed writing, and I'd been dabbling with trying to write television and film scripts with a friend and then on my own. And but I didn't really, that was sort of just a pipe dream. And but having paid off all my loans and having no debt, I was with a friend one night having a drink, and she said, why don't you just try it? Why don't you just move to California? What's stopping you? And I looked her in the eye. I said, what is stopping me? Nothing's stopping me. So I called my family the next day and said, I'm moving to California. I have a friend out there. I can sleep on her living room floor. And I'm going to see if I can, just try to be a TV and film writer, like a million other people that come to Los Angeles, try to get into Hollywood. And so that was it. I drove across the country in an old Chevette that was sort of breaking down, but made it across the country. And it was exciting.
And you found some success there as a writer. I looked at your film credits and your TV credits.
I did. I was very lucky. I started getting some jobs on award shows like the Emmy Awards and writing that kind of banter on award shows where the presenters and the hosts have to come out and talk. So I started getting small jobs like that, and that was exciting. And then I wrote a screenplay, my first attempt, and I just, for fun, I entered it into a contest, and it was a contest that was run by the Motion Picture Academy, the people that give out the Oscars. They have an annual screenwriting contest where they pick winners they get like 5,000, 6,000 entries. And I popped mine in the mail, and it won. And so that really opens up a lot of doors. It's a very well-known contest. So when you win that, everybody starts calling you, and all the studios and agencies are calling you and want to read the script that you won, et cetera. And so I was able to turn that into a career for 10 years, where I was writing for TV and film and getting hired a lot by studios to either write my own ideas or to adapt books that they had bought, or somebody else's ideas to write scripts for them. So yeah, I had a very nice career as a TV and film writer.
Yeah, and I see your name associated with 90210, which was a massively influential and successful show at that time.
That's right, and it's funny. I had never even watched that show because I didn't really like it, and it's just what I'd never tried it, and I didn't think I'd like it. And so when I went for that interview, I remember telling them, I was like, "Well, I have to be honest. I don't watch the show, and I don't know the history of the characters. I mean, obviously it was very famous, so I know what it's about, and I recognize who they are, but I can't really tell you their character history." And they liked that. They're like, "Good, we need fresh ideas, and it's all right. You'll come in with a whole new perspective." So I did that, and when in that final year of 90210, the original series with the original cast, not the reboot that was been more recent. But yeah, so that, and again, I made great friends there. So yeah, that was a nice experience.
So on the surface, by all measure, it seems like things were going really, really well. You are doing your passion, which is writing. It sounds like you achieved your goal of becoming a screenwriter in Hollywood. That's what you sought out to do when you went out there. But eventually, you would give up the screenwriting as well as the practicing law for nonprofit. How did that come about?
Yeah, that was not planned. But now in retrospect, it all makes sense. At the time, it was not planned at all. I'd finished 90210, and I was doing a lot of television pilots. I was selling ideas to networks for TV shows, and then I would write them, and then they usually don't end up making them. That's sort of the majority of how that works in Hollywood. Networks buy so many ideas every year and have you write them and make them, and they only make a handful. You can count on one hand. But so but it's very successful. You make money and you're working all the time, and you're working with actors and producers, and it was very successful. But I remember seeing during that time, I went to see the movie Hotel Rwanda, which was a movie with Don Cheadle about the Rwandan genocide. And I left that movie feeling very guilty because I didn't know anything about that story, and it happened during the Clinton administration. And I remember thinking when I was sitting in the movie theater, well, wow, I was voting by then. I was over 18 in the Clinton years. Why don't I know that story? That should have been something the world was paying attention to. And so I left that movie feeling very guilty. At the same time that was happening, I was also noticing in my personal life that I wasn't doing any volunteer work. And in New York City, as a lawyer, I used to do constant volunteer work. I did pro bono work as an attorney. Our firm was very big on doing pro bono work. I was a volunteer wish granter for the Starlight Make-A-Wish Foundation. So there'd be a sick child who wanted to, have a certain wish granted, and I would be the person in charge of making sure that happened and coordinating it and figuring out how it could come true. So I used to do that as a side thing. There was a nursing home down the street where you could go and, read the newspaper to the people who didn't have good eyesight, or just go around and talk to some of the people who couldn't get out of their beds. And so in New York City, or any big city, I think it's very easy to volunteer, or at least a city you can walk around in, because New York, it's all around you. I moved to Los Angeles. You really have to. It's a challenge to do anything here in Los Angeles because the driving, and something is probably not very convenient for you. I wouldn't even know, to this day, I don't even know where a nursing home is in Los Angeles. They're like tucked away in corners that I've never seen. And when you're in your car, it's not the same as when you're walking on the streets of New York and you'll pass a soup kitchen and you'll think, oh, I should go in there and help. Here, you really have to be more active about it, proactive. And apparently I wasn't for a number of years. So I realized I had lived here in Los Angeles for about 10 years and hadn't done a lick of volunteer work. And that made me very unhappy with myself. And so since that happened at the same time the Hotel Rwanda movie came out, they just sort of collided just randomly, really. And so I thought, well, I have a month off. I could go to Africa and volunteer. That'll make up for 10 years of doing nothing. So I've been learning about Africa a little bit. George Clooney was talking about it in the news about Save Darfur, and I was learning more about the post-Rwanda situation and just learning about all the different countries in Africa. And it was interesting to me. I didn't really know anything about it, so I was learning something new. And so I signed up to go take a volunteer vacation in Africa. I'd say I Googled, but it was before Google. I Yahooed volunteer vacation Africa. And I found an organization called Cross Cultural Solutions, and you pay them and they send you somewhere to volunteer, but they take care of you and they make sure you're safe and they teach you about the culture and they do it in a culturally appropriate way. And they find you a place to volunteer for half a day, and you can go for a week or, or 2 months or as long as you want. So I signed up to go for a month. And that was December of 2005. And I spent a month, and I chose Kilimanjaro. They had locations all around the world, but I selected Kilimanjaro just because it sounded exotic. I'd heard of that word somewhere, probably from the Ernest Hemingway novel that I hadn't read, but I knew the title of. And I was like, all right, that sounds really wild, Kilimanjaro, so I'll go there. And they said, do you want to work with women? Do you want to work with animals? Do you want to work with children? And I said, I don't care. Just put me wherever you think I could be of use. And so they put me at a center for street kids. It's an orphanage in the town of Moshi, Kilimanjaro, Tanzania. And I spent a month there working in the afternoons, and it was the best month of my life. I say that with some regret, because you would kind of like to hope that the best month of your life might still be in front of you, but I'm quite sure that I will never have a month like that. That was really an incredible month. It just opened my eyes to the world. I'd never been to a developing country before. And the people of Tanzania are so warm and lovely and welcoming. And the kids had so much joy and so much happiness, even though they had nothing. They had no money. They had no material items. But boy, they had happiness in spades. You can't help but be affected by that. It was just an incredible month. And so the day I had to leave, I was sobbing. And I was like, what is happening to me? Why am I crying? Because I'm not a crier. And it was like, oh my God, what is this about? So it was unexpected. But when I came back home, I couldn't stop thinking about those kids that I met. There was about 20 of them. And I thought, well, I have to help them. A little bit of money would go so far there. And my friends in Los Angeles were happy to help. When I told them the stories, they couldn't help but want to help me, help them. But they wanted their tax break. So I had to set up a nonprofit. And luckily, being a lawyer, I didn't do it myself, but I had some connections who I found a pro bono law firm to set up the nonprofit for me. So I set it up just to help those 20 kids in Africa. And friends here in Los Angeles started making donations, and we were able to help those kids. And then what happened that was really, really unexpected is people started coming to me with other projects and saying, I know a monk in Cambodia that is helping girls get an education. If I gave you money for him, could it go through your organization and you could give a grant to him and we could help? And I'm like, okay, sure. I thought about it. I was like, all right, that's fine. And then somebody else I met in a valet parking line. She's like, oh, well, I know a school teacher in the mountains of Peru above the Sacred Valley, and she's helping the indigenous children there to get an education. I really think you should help her. You should tell her story. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll talk to her. And so it really grew organically. And then I joined together with some women here in Los Angeles who helped me grow the organization. And they said, well, let's make this a bigger thing, and they'll tell their friends. And we started having events in Los Angeles, and celebrities started getting involved a little bit. And And so at first this was just 10% of my time, and I was still 90% TV and film writer. And then it was 20% of my time, and then it was 30. And it was just more rewarding to be working on the charitable work and to be meeting these amazing people around the world who are helping children. So soon it was like 90% of my time, and I was barely writing anymore, which was fine for me. I was really happy in doing that. And at some point I realized, oh, wow, I'm going to run out of money. Like my personal funds are going to be gone. I had a 401k from when I was a lawyer that had some money in it, but you're not supposed to touch that till you're in your 60s. And it wasn't a lot, but so that wasn't really an option. And I thought, all right, I probably have enough money to pay rent for another year. I guess I'm going to have to write another screenplay and go back to TV and film writing so that I can continue to do the work for the charitable work for the kids around the world.
Tell me, like at that point, when you're enjoying what you're doing, but you are looking at your bank account, there is this definition of wealth, and it's striking a balance between the money in the bank, the purpose of the work that you're doing, and fulfillment. How do you balance those things?
Yeah, so that was really where I was, that exact point, and sort of looking at that question. And I remember thinking, I don't need a lot. It doesn't cost a lot to be me. I'm single. I've paid off all my debts. I don't have children that I'm putting through college. And so I have a rental apartment that's rent controlled in Santa Monica. It doesn't cost a lot to be me. And I thought, all right, if I could, write a script every now and then, that would pay, because a script, you could make six figures if you do well. And so you could sell something for $100,000 or $200,000. Or I thought, well, that could last me, for a couple of years. That was sort of what I thought might happen. I wasn't giving it a lot of strategic thinking, but it was, when my bank account got low, I thought, all right, I better start doing it. And it's funny, I remember distinctly at that time, I was taking a shower, and I remember thinking in the shower, somebody should just give me a lot of money. They could really trust me. I would do such good things with it. And I was like, well, somebody just should trust me with a lot of money. And it sounds silly now, but I had that strong thought because I just knew that I could help a lot of people, and that would solve the crisis I was going through, since I didn't know where my next paycheck would be. And I'd like to say that the phone rang the second I got out of the shower, but it's not exactly true. But a week later, within 7 days, the phone rang. And someone that I had been a summer associate with at a law firm back when I was in law school, even before I was a lawyer, was now a big partner at a firm in New York City. And he said, I'm doing this crazy deal that has to do with mortgage-backed securities in another country. And it was during the mortgage crisis here in the U.S., and it was all very kind of confusing. And he said, we have to spin part of it off. And the only way we're going to be able to do this, it has to be done by a deadline next Friday. And we realized is to give a piece of this away to a charity. And we don't have time to get it approved by the Red Cross or any big organization that parties involved wanted to do it, because that kind of thing needs board approval, and you have to think about it, and you have to examine what are these mortgages and are they real, and because it was during that time when people were doing all kinds of nefarious work with mortgages and things weren't what they seemed to be. But he said, I thought maybe you could do it because you're small, and could we give you this? Could you hold this instrument for us for a week, and then someone's going to buy it from you a week later, and they're going to pay you $250,000 for the charity. And I said, well, that would be fantastic. And yes, I don't think I don't know what these mortgage-backed things are, but even if there's something tainted about them, you're a very reputable New York City law firm who's advising me to do this. And no judge is going to throw me in jail because I'm trying to raise money for orphans around the world. So I was like, yeah, I'll hold the instrument for a week and sell it back to you. And $250,000 would be amazing. And that wouldn't be for me personally, but at least it was exciting to, help the charity grow. And then I could do something on the side to keep me going. And as it turns out, long story short, that instrument, the buyer never bought it the week later. So a week later, I owned that thing. And then the lawyer from New York called me and said, all right, now you have to hire your own lawyer and figure out what you own, because now this is yours. The bell tolled at midnight, and you now own this thing. And so I ended up owning an instrument that was giving out interest from these mortgages, and it was paying out like $100,000 of interest a month. And it took us 2 years for the lawyers to figure out what it was and sell it off. So the organization, we ended up making $2 million. And so I suddenly had a nonprofit with a $2 million endowment.
Wow. You got that at no cost, right? You didn't have to pay for it.
Oh, no, not a thing. It was a gift. It was a charitable gift.
But you were stuck with it, whatever it was.
And then I sold it. So in the end, I had $2 million as an endowment. And I took that as a message from the universe that I was on the right track here, and that my wish that somebody would just give me a lot of money and trust me to do good with it had come true. And so I used that as an endowment to start the organization so that I could tell people that 100% of their donations would go towards the programs helping children. So if you donate $10 or $100 or $10,000, that money goes towards our programming. And all of our operating, administrative costs and fundraising costs, when we throw a big gala fundraiser every year, the cost of throwing that comes out of that $2 million fund, that fund that we have. So I can tell a donor 100% of your money comes from that. So that's the model I set up. And so that was 2007, 2008, I got that gift. And so since then, the organization has now grown to we started helping those 20 kids in Tanzania in 2006. And now we've helped over 110,000 kids across 34 countries. We work from East LA to East Africa, and from Cambodia to Compton, and Harlem to Haiti. And we've really been able to come up with a model that is sort of unique in the charitable world, that lets donors decide where their money goes and get to choose how you want to have your own impact with your own dollars. And there seemed to be a calling for it. I never wanted to do this just to have it. I only wanted to do it if it was serving a purpose. And it seems to be serving a purpose not only for the children we help, but also for the donors on this end, because there was nothing quite like it at the time. And so it's really been remarkable to see it grow organically over time.
Coming up, we talk about success stories, the model that Scott finds is leading to the biggest impact, and so much more. But first, Scott reflects on all his skills coming together.
And now it makes sense that I was a lawyer and a writer, because I used all those skills in my job as CEO of this nonprofit Go campaign. Now I'm like, oh, okay, I see why I went to law school now. All right, I see the writing career. Now it all makes sense, because I use it all here at Go campaign seamlessly. I need all those skills. So now I understand how it all works and the path of how it brought me here.
None of it was time wasted in retrospect.
Not a bit. And so that's a nice feeling too.
The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/061. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to look up more about Scott or links out to things mentioned in this episode. We're also adding transcripts, although we're really far behind, but check the website for updates. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Scott mentioned that his friends were eager to help and support when he returned from Tanzania, his volunteer trip. But often they wanted the nice perk of the charitable tax deduction. So he established Go Campaign, his nonprofit. The tax deduction for charitable contributions has typically helped shave money off your tax bill if you itemize instead of taking the standard deduction. This week's money tip comes because of the new Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Although the deduction for donations has not changed, you'll need to itemize to claim it. And that's a much higher bar with the newly doubled standard deduction. Under the new law, an individual would need to itemize deductions to exceed $12,000, the bill's new standard deduction for individual taxpayers. That's up from the current $6,350. Married couples would need deductions exceeding $24,000. That's up from the current $12,700. There's a new congressional report that estimates 18 million households will itemize deductions this year. That's down from 46.5 million last year, so a massive change. With a higher standard deduction, there will be fewer people who benefit from donating to charity because without itemized deductions, most people lose the tax benefits associated with charitable giving. If you're charitably inclined, here are a few things to consider. Try a strategy called bunching. Rather than giving every year, give a greater amount every other year. For example, instead of giving $4,000 to a charity this year, accelerate the gift by giving $8,000 every 2 years. This way you can get your itemized deductions over the limit 1 year and take the standard deduction the next. Similarly, you can make a large contribution in one tax year to establish or add to a donor-advised fund. If the gift is large enough, you may be able to itemize deductions that year. Then in future years, when your deductible expenses are not large enough to itemize, you can ask the donor-advised fund administrator to make a distribution to your favorite charity, thereby continuing your support. Donor-advised funds are relatively inexpensive to establish and maintain. If it's something you're interested in, ask me and I can tell you more about them. Lastly, you can avoid the capital gains tax on investments by donating stocks or other appreciated assets, such as artwork and antiques that have grown in value. If you have questions, check with your tax preparer. I hope that you'll continue giving, tax break or no tax break. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. What's your biggest financial challenge right now? Do you need a financial plan or help consolidating old accounts? If you could use a little professional help, email me at awang@runnymede, that's RUNNYMEDE.com, or go to inspiredmoney.fm/ANDY. I'd love to chat with you and point you in the right direction. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. Scott, tell me if this is true. I get the sense that one of your superpowers is the fact that you are very social and that you make friends and that you have this network from your lawyering days to screenwriting, and you keep in touch with people.
I do keep in touch with people. I enjoy that. And that's just part of my nature. And I think, definitely networking helps in keeping your networks. But I have to say that most of the funds that I've been able to raise over the years, with the exception of that big gift that I just told you about from my lawyer colleague in New York, have been from new people and people telling other people and word of mouth and people that I didn't know. It's not, my Hollywood connections from screenwriting are not involved at all in this venture, really. Some are donors, a few, but most of our donors are people that I have just heard about my story. People have been telling friends, and it's really grown organically. I really thought about when I was creating this, once it got going and I realized, all right, this is now a thing, and this is what I'm doing now. I'm running a nonprofit. Then I had to sort of put on my lawyer critical thinking again and said, all right, why is this working and why should it exist? Because UNICEF is already out there and all kinds of great organizations helping kids. So why does there need to be another one? Why am I any different? And what's the purpose? And what are the best practices? Like, how do we do this right? Over time, we've come up with a local hero model, which is that we invest in local heroes around the world, community leaders, pioneering people, visionaries who are helping children in their communities. So at Go Campaign, I never go into a community, whether it's here in Los Angeles or in Mississippi or in Africa, and say, hey, you need a clean water, or you need a library, or you need a new school. I just go in and listen. Our model is to listen to the people on the ground, the people in the community who know their children best. And so because of that, our work at Go Campaign greatly varies. And we might be doing clean water in one place. We might be doing loans, microloans for women to keep them out of sex trafficking in Asia. We might be doing an after-school soccer sports program that is bringing together people of different religions or people of different tribes. We might be doing after-school tutoring here in Los Angeles in the gang communities. We're doing work with autistic children and special needs children in several spots around the world. And that's because the needs of children are different everywhere. I live in Los Angeles, which is a very diverse, broken apart city that's spread all over the place. And so I don't even know what kids in East LA need. I can't presume to know what children in East Africa need or be any sort of expert. The only people who are experts are people who are living there day to day and who know their challenges and their needs. And so that became the model. So we've been able to vet and find, and I think we have a real knack for finding these amazing local heroes around the world. Many have gone on to become CNN heroes. One has even won a Nobel Prize, not because of anything we've done, but it just shows that we have a talent for finding these people who might be falling through the cracks, who the rest of the world don't know about yet, and who need a hand up. And so that was a different model. When I started this organization, 12 years ago, nobody was quite doing that. So I thought, all right, that makes us different. And then the other thing that makes us different, which is now a little more common, but still not common enough, I think, is that I let all the donors tell me where they want their money to go. If you are really interested in girls' education and you want your money to go to that, I'll show you all the programs we have around the world and all our local heroes that are working in that area, and we can direct your money toward that. If you really care about children here in the United States, which many people do and think you should start working in your own backyard, then we have projects here in the USA that can appeal to you. If you're interested in the environmental causes, we have programs that are teaching kids about job entrepreneurship, but environmentally sustainable ways that help them like recycle paper and turn them into gift cards that they can then sell and have a business out of in Nairobi. And so we have projects, because our projects vary so differently, we really have something that could probably meet any of your charitable needs. And so I really love pairing up people with needs with people who have resources. And so finding a donor, I love talking to them and saying, what do you care about? What are your interests? And let me help you find a project that would resonate with you. So it's not just about you writing a check. It's about you really feeling connected. So I would say, Andy, what are your passions and what do you want? What's your impact you want to have on the world? What's the change you would like to make? And if you tell me that you're really interested in early childhood education, or you saw about the hurricane in Puerto Rico and you really feel like you'd like to put your resources there, or you think that girls are the way forward, and by educating a girl, you educate the family, and you're going to change the whole village that way. We have so many projects that can meet your needs, and I'll be like, all right, Andy, here are the projects that could speak to you. Which one of these would you like to get involved in? Would you like to donate? Would you like to adopt it? Would you like to go and visit first and see what they're doing? I really like to make it transparent and get people engaged. So it's not just you writing a check, which is nice, but it's much more exciting and rewarding for me when I can see that if I can give my joy and passion and share that with somebody else and be able to help give you a piece of that.
It's incredible. Go Campaign has really become a platform, or almost like a stock exchange, where you're matching buyer and seller, or donor and local hero.
Yeah, that's my goal. I think it's a win-win for everybody. Obviously, it's a win for the people on the ground. And I think in this day and age, more and more young people they want that connection with their philanthropic work. They want to feel connected, and they want to know where the impact of their dollars. And so I love being able to provide that.
Besides the common thread of children around the world, it varies greatly depending on whether it's East LA or Africa or somewhere in Asia. And I think it's a moving target too, even for the donor, because what moves us or what we are passionate about, usually it's sparked by, in your case, it was Hotel Rwanda, or it could be if I travel somewhere. So the fact that Go Campaign can adjust for the changing desires of donors and how donors want to make an impact is really powerful.
Yeah, it's true, because even me, I'm very passionate about all our projects, but depending on what's going on in the news, or like you said, where you've traveled most recently, those become the ones that you get most excited about. And we have a lot of donors that like to travel and go visit. And so I'm always, whenever I meet somebody new, I'm like, if they're talking about vacations, I'm like, where are you going? And if you're going anywhere near, or if you're going to Cambodia, oh, I know you've got to visit this monk and see the work he's doing. Or if you're going to Africa on safari, oh, you've got to plan an extra day and go visit this orphanage. And so I'm always interested in where people are traveling, because that does lead people to a lot of new philanthropic interests. And even here at home, people might read a newspaper article about something that's going on in their own backyard and be like, wow, I didn't realize kids were suffering so much right here at home. And how can I help and how can I get involved? And so we do now have a portfolio of amazing local heroes that people can sort of choose from and who they want to invest in. And I really do like to think about it in financial terms, because you really are investing in these people, you're investing in the children and in their futures. And I think there's many great charities out there, but none are more worthy than investing in children.
Scott, how many local heroes can you work with?
At any given time, we probably work with about 40. We've had over 100 in our course, but a lot of them don't need help again. They just ask us for one-time help. Like if you could just build us a classroom, we've got the teachers, we have the books, but we don't have we're studying under a tree. And if you could help us build a classroom, we'd be able to attract more children because it's safer. And so we'll build the classroom, and that's all they ask for. And they don't need help again. So we worked with that local hero once and met a need, and then we move on. Some other local heroes, they need help, maybe for a few years in a row to get them going and lift them up so that they can then spread their wings and fly. And some others are just continue to do great work year after year, and they have different needs. Like first they need an organic garden so they can grow vegetables to feed the kids. And then maybe next they need a library, and maybe then next they need a job training program. And so we'll do project by project. And we've worked with some of our local partners for 10 years. Because they're doing such great work and they handle the money so efficiently, and we can send people to visit them, and they've been so successful. So at any given time, we probably have 40 around the world that we're working with.
And what are the characteristics that you look for in that individual? And I'm kind of curious, do you tend to look for people who share things in common with you, or are they very different from you?
No, it's not about anything to do with me or us or it's evolved. I'll have to say at first it was really just people helping children. And so in that first year, and I was, when I was hearing about people, and I wasn't really narrowing down what it was. I was just like, well, that sounds like a good cause. You're helping orphans. Sure, let's help you. And I would make sure that they were reputable and that they could handle the money well and sort of, obviously the basic things. But over time, we've really narrowed it down, and now we work with what we call pioneering local heroes. And to us, pioneering means somebody who has a vision, who's not just, let's say they're an orphanage director and they have 20 kids, or they're a school teacher and they work with 100 kids. They're not just thinking about the 20 kids in their care, but they're thinking about, how do I help solve this problem in my whole community, or in my whole country, or in the world? So they're really kind of big thinkers, and they're not just focused on the kids in their care. So, for example, there's a woman named Brenda Shuma in Tanzania, in Moshi, actually the town where I first started 12 years ago. So it's kind of full circle that I met. And she works with autistic and special needs children in Africa. And she's got 70 kids at her center, 40 who sleep there at night, and another 30 who come during the days. And they're kids who have Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, attention deficit disorder, all kinds of intellectual disabilities. And in that part of the world, those kids are considered a curse. They're often locked up, hidden away, or put to death. It's a real problem. So while Brenda has this wonderful little center where she's rehabilitating the kids and teaching them life skills and like how to feed themselves and bathe themselves, and then how to have job skills, how to grow vegetables, or how to tend goats, or something where they can earn an income. So she's turning them into breadwinners, and then they go back to their communities and sort of are turning the shifting how people view children with special needs. And people are now saying, oh, wow, I didn't think that kid amounted to anything. And now she's making money for that family. I have a new opinion now of children with special needs. So she is thinking about that for the whole country. She has them out marching in parades. She has them on the radio talking. She has them wear T-shirts in town that, so they're proud to be at the Gabriela Center in Tanzania. So she's a real visionary. She is not just thinking about those 70 kids. She's thinking about how do I save the lives of these children who are marginalized all throughout my continent of Africa, and how can I be a role model for other places so that they can come and learn the way that we rehabilitate the kids and turn them into breadwinners. So that's the kind of local hero that we want. We want somebody who is really thinking big. Another one of our local heroes is Fabio Chavez in Paraguay, who runs the Recycled Orchestra. And he's become a bit of an internet sensation because there was a documentary made about him called Landfill Harmonic. And he takes trash that was the greatest resource in this town. And he worked at a trash dump. He was an ecological engineer. And he saw kids picking trash for a living and not going to school. And he thought, what can we do? Our biggest resource is garbage. And so he, with another man, they figured out how to make musical instruments out of the trash. And he started an orchestra. But he wasn't just thinking about, I want to teach these kids music, although he did. It became a movement in his community, and it really put his community on the map. And he now travels the world with that orchestra of kids, and they're playing the instruments that are made out of trash. But he was really thinking in a very big way. He wasn't just trying to just think about the kids in his community. He's really become a role model for the world about how to recycle, how to change a community, and how to involve children and make them the center of the community's interests and to make them feel proud. And he's really turned things upside down there in an amazing way. So that kind of visionary thoughtfulness and the people who are really thinking about how do we make change for so many kids, those are the kind of local heroes we look for.
It's very inspiring. And I feel like by focusing on that visionary aspect, it sounds like that translates into greater impact. Is that something that you think about? Like, how can you make the biggest impact with the dollars that you're putting to work?
Yeah, we do. We get so many great proposals every year from the partners that we've vetted and found and we've invited to apply, but we don't have enough money to go around to say yes to them all. And so we do have to look and make those decisions and think about, all right, how many kids is this impacting? What's the bang for your buck? How do we make the dollars stretch the farthest? Which programs have the most potential for replication that somebody else might hear about? Or, what could be the ripple effect of this project? And so, again, we don't just think about, all right, this project's helping 20 kids or 200 kids. We consider that, and we look at the dollar figures compared to that. But then we also think, well, hold on, this project that's helping 20 kids, they all have families, and that by putting these 20 kids through the program, then their families are going to be impacted, and then their teachers or their schools. So there could be a ripple effect from a program with 10 kids that could be enormous, could turn into a tsunami of change, where there might be a program that's helping 200 kids that might just stick with those 200, and it might not have that kind of ripple effect. You might just help 200 kids, but it's not. It might stop after that, So you sort of have to examine and think about the future and try to be a visionary with your local heroes and try to be. They're so pioneering, trying to really tune into their level of, all right, what's the ripple effect here? Because that's where you affect real change. When you help one person and you are then helping the family, you're helping the community, you're helping the region, you're helping the world. It can really be enormous. So yes, it's those. We have to look at all those things when we make the decisions because, as I said, we don't always have enough money to go around to help everyone we want. We have a waiting list of just amazing projects for, we hope people will adopt one day, or we just try to spread the word because there's so many amazing people doing fantastic, impactful work in so many countries here at home as well, and the need is endless. But I feel like the resources are endless. There are people out there who have much more than they need and know what to do with, and they are actually looking for something. They just don't have the time to figure out how to do it. And so that I know that there's a great marriage, and I've seen it happen. And so I'm happy to play a part in that.
I love the concept of trying to chase this tsunami of change. I see that you've really put together a impressive resource of people, because you have ambassadors who have celebrity power. They have tremendous reach on social media and the ability to partner with them in your fundraising. And then you also have an extensive advisory council, circle of friends and partners, and leadership council.
Well, again, it's part of, just being very transparent and really getting people involved. And so I like I said, I love it when somebody writes a check, but I really want them to feel like they're part of the organization and that they can feel free to refer projects to us. They can feel free to go visit projects or bring their children and to share with their community of friends, because that's the only way we're going to be able to help more kids is when people tell this story and talk about us, because we're not very well known. I doubt many of your listeners had heard of Go Campaign before this podcast. So, we have a lot of work to do in terms of spreading awareness. And so, yes, luckily being in Los Angeles, we do have a few celebrity ambassadors, Ewan McGregor, Robert Pattinson, and Lily Collins. And so they help to spread the word, which is very nice. And when we have events that they're at, it draws some attention, and that, any spotlight is good. And then we do have a circle of advisors and friends, young people alike, and more established people in businesses and who have become donors. And then we seek advice from them. Sometimes one of our partners around the world might need help with accounting, and we realize that they're doing a great job helping kids, but they're terrible at keeping the books or showing how the money was spent. And so we'll find one of our accountants supporters, and they'll help them, and they'll give them the tools they need. So it's not always about dollars. Sometimes it's about expertise and sharing skills and putting matching resources with needs on that front. And that's equally rewarding to both the donor who's giving their time and their expertise, and to the recipient, the local heroes on the ground who really could use the help. So we love making those kinds of matches as well. And so really it does take a village, as they say. I'm all about involving more people, having people really be a part of it and get to experience the great joy and satisfaction that I get to experience every day. I don't want to hog that all to myself, so I like to share it with anybody who supports Go Campaign.
As someone who has seen success in the for-profit world and in the nonprofit world, how do you define success?
That's really good. I think that's a moving target. Success. I think that is something that's really case specific and can change. What you think might be success when you start something, it might be a failure. I mean, you might fail at something, but then you learn so much from that failure, or that failure led you to a different path, which then turned out to be some amazing, great success. So how can you ever really define success? Because what you think is a failure one day might actually turn out to be your greatest blessing when you look back on it 10 years from now. I guess I'm careful to put any labels on the term success. I feel like you do the best that you can, and you do something with the best intentions, and that's success. Really, it's the process. And it's less about, I've never very much enjoyed, some people have tried to get the organization to want certain goals, like let's help 1 million kids by this date, or let's be in this many countries by this time. And I've always resisted that. And because that is not success to me. I know that's how other people measure. They want to have a certain amount of money by a certain time, or those goals aren't what motivates me. Actual actions motivate me. So when we needed to build Brenda in Tanzania a new center for special needs children, because she was outgrowing the old one, and that goal of building her a new center and letting her reach more children, we just accomplished part of that last week. Phase 1, we have a new center. They've just moved in, and now the kids are in a new home, and they're going to be able to reach more children. And we're going to continue to build some more dorms there so she can reach even more kids. That's a success. I've achieved success by working with Brenda and helping her reach more children. But even that's going to change. It's continue to become even more successful. So action oriented as opposed to numbers and targets. I just like it when stuff gets done. I feel, when I can check something off the box, if I can say, wow, I'm so glad I introduced Andy to that monk in Cambodia, because I know Andy had visited there and he was really moved by the kids, and this monk is helping kids there, and Andy should really channel his philanthropic passions to help those kids. They should get to know each other. And so once I've even made that email connection, and whether you do anything or not, that's a success for me, because I've put that out into the world and checked that box. So success to me is a lot of little positive actions.
I love that. And then I'm reminded that Go Campaign stands for giving opportunity, but Go is action oriented. So I love the action part of Go Campaign. So thank you, Scott, for sharing your very inspired money story with us, and that you're helping children around the world. You're making a massive impact. Can you tell the Inspired Money listener where they can follow you and learn more about Go Campaign and learn how to get more involved?
Please, yes, I welcome anyone who's interested and would like to learn more. We have a website, gocampaign.org, gocampaign.org. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and you can also find me, Scott Fifer. I'm called Go Fifer. We'd love to hear from you and help you find your passion and help you connect to all these amazing people around the world and help you be part of the change.
Fantastic. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for making such a positive impact on our world.
Thanks, Andy. I really appreciate it.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? There was so much great stuff in there for me. I love the idea of not making assumptions about who needs help and where, but rather enlisting local heroes who know the local area and what people there need. To invest in visionaries who can make an impact in the ripple effect that can be so powerful. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment and takeaway, let me know by going to inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. I'd love to see you there. All the music on today's show is by Jim Kimo West. Aloha, Kimo. If you enjoy this show, please tell a friend. It helps more people find the Inspired Money podcast and helps grow our community. Together, let's make the world a better place. Thank you for tuning in. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you.